All right, how's it going there, folks? Welcome back here. Welcome back to a Monday, start of the work week out here. It is the Earthmaster on this Monday, March 11th, 2024. It's about 12:07 p.m. here. California time, latest activity shows a 2.1 across the area of California. Currently taking a live look here across the area of Grindavik, Iceland from the site called livefromiceland.is. Off on the right side of the screen is the area of Grindavik, where we are seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity popping up here this morning in this region. Definitely something to keep an eye on here. Just double checking my audio, making sure everything's up to par in terms of the audio quality. Again, thanks for everyone last night letting me know how it sounded, and more specifically that I was only in one channel, so I do appreciate that. I had no clue, but I think I fixed that issue this morning. So here is the earthquake activity in question out here. We're seeing a kind of a broader angle of earthquake activity up and down the Iceland region. Of course, that could affect the areas around Grindavik, where we're watching a pretty good magma intrusion event take place out here in the area. Now, a lot of earthquake activity working its way southward towards the Grindavik area and literally within the town as well. Most of our eruptive activity has been confined outside of the town to the northeast around the Hagafell and the Slingarfell region, which is right about here. But we did see back in January a little one open up here just outside of the town. There's still always concern that it could continue further south into town, or maybe even off here across just off outside the coast here. So yeah, I've got about 97 earthquakes here in the last 12 hours, so that's quite the uptick. But as you can see, no major eruptive fissure activity opening up out here yet. But with this elevated activity, it's something to watch. Excuse me. Now, the latest Icelandic Met Office statement here was put out a couple days ago, so they haven't even jumped in on any of this earthquake activity yet. I do think it's something to watch pretty closely. Of course, 4 days ago now, they stated that there's still an increased chance of eruption in the next days, in the days ahead. So we'll watch for that. No eruption yet, folks, but definitely some elevated earthquake activity out here, and it's affecting the entire rift zones out here across the area. And of course, Grindavik area down here sits within one of those rift zones. All right, let's move on here, and let's double check the GPS out here in that area, see if we got any changes going on. This is the 8-hour run times from this site right here. Of course, we have been looking at vertical displacement, meaning swelling going on the area for quite a while. Although this station down here seems like it stopped reporting for some reason. I'm not for sure why. That was about a week or so ago. And these are supposed to be updating every 8 hours or so. But I'm not seeing that, so I'm not for sure exactly what's going on. Some of this activity is from December. This one here looks like a recent chart. But either way, a lot of this uptick here indicating that we're getting close to maximum accumulation of magma below the surface. Not a whole lot of broad earthquake activity out here across the divergent zones, but just localized here to the Iceland area. So we'll continue to watch that. If you look at the rest of the globe out here, it looks fairly quiet in terms of movement. We really haven't seen any major activity overnight. We've got a 4.3 coming in right now. Looks like just off the coast here of Russia, way off the plate boundary. Don't really see too much activity well up there into this area, but we're getting it right now. Some scattered activity overnight and this morning across the Philippines southward. Java Trench did see a 4.2 over here, kind of making its way up around the plate boundary. Been noticing a handful of earthquakes here across the area. Just within this region, but it looks like it wants to advance a little bit further towards the Andaman Sea with this newer activity taking place. Aside from that, still pretty quiet out here across roughly about Papua New Guinea eastward here along the plate boundary. We have been seeing deeper earthquakes out here recently in this area, but really no surface adjustment taking place here in this zone or back across the area of New Zealand. Now, if you look, they did see another three-pointer down here, but that one is just another deep earthquake underneath the North Island area at almost 200 kilometers deep. They've been seeing a good amount of deep earthquake activity underneath this area recently, and I believe that's associated here with the subduction zone called the Hikurangi, and that is very capable of producing some large damaging earthquakes up in the 8 magnitude range. This earthquake here from yesterday, so no newer activity here taking place in the region aside from this deeper activity underneath the North Island region. So interesting day. I guess we'll have to see how this plays out throughout this Monday. South America seeing a handful of earthquakes as well. Older movement quakes here, including that 5-pointer there off the coast of Costa Rica from yesterday. A lot of red rings here indicating some older movement. For the Hawaii area, let's zoom in here, see what we got. One earthquake right up at the crater area around Kilauea Volcano. That's a 2.3. Coming in here just within the last hour or so, about a kilometer deep within that area. I don't think we've seen any major changes out there, but we'll just double check the seismograph stations there for ourselves. It's been kind of an odd day for earthquake activity, somewhat quiet. Kilauea Volcano, which still sits at a yellow and advisory level here. I'm just going to check the tilt meter station, see what we got, if we can access that, which we can, and it looks like we're just kind of going up here. Really no major inflation event, and this is still very low compared to the overall trend over the last few months. As far as earthquake activity around the summit region goes, there's a handful of smaller quakes there across the area. It does look like there's a data blackout on the other seismograph station I just showed you. This one here is more recent, but I'm still not seeing any major earthquake activity out here. Anything of concern is pretty much non-existent out here. We got one lonesome earthquake in the last hour and a handful of smaller ones there in the deeper regions there underneath Pahala. All right, California area, there's some movement going on there across the Clear Lake volcanic field. Looks pretty active here today, 2.2. 56 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. Now, this is associated with, a whole bunch of these energy-producing plants out here. There's one of them, an earthquake nearby. There's a whole process involved by creating energy. They actually inject raw sewage below the heated surface to create some type of dry steam. In turn, creates energy, and it powers quite a few homes out here across the Bay Area. That's the what's going on down here, but they do, it does create some earthquake activity out there. It's very common, and occasionally these earthquakes can get up in the 4 range, but for the most part they stay below that area, that magnitude. Further south, a little bit of movement here on the Hayward and the Calaveras Fault, this branching area showing a little bit of activity today. Now this is, again, just a split here off the San Andreas Fault. Handful of smaller quakes here today. Largest one shows a 2.3 in this area. Further down south, a little bit of movement along the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault here. The Southern California area, extreme Southern California area, not really seeing any swarming going on. Let's see what we got for a 2.5 look. One earthquake after 2 o'clock. That's going to be about 2 o'clock in the morning. 2.6. That is going to be south of the border here. So really not a whole lot of elevated activity today, and this movement from yesterday outside the Thousand Island, or Thousand Palms. Thousand Island, I was thinking of some dressing there. I like that stuff on my salad. Either that or ranch, one of the two. Making me hungry. So a little bit of activity here from yesterday. We haven't seen any further uptick out here today, but still kind of watching it. It does look fairly active in terms of microquake activity up and down the Southern California area, but it's limited to that. Not a whole lot of swarming in a specific area or any magnitudes above the 2.5. Up here across the Mount Whitney area, yeah, that one is above a 2.5, and that's a looks like a 3.1 outside the Lone Pine area, 10 kilometers deep for this quake in the mountain range just south here of Mount Whitney area. Just one lonesome earthquake there, kind of an odd one, but could be an overall sign here of a little bit of strain building up across this area. One lonesome earthquake across the Long Valley supervolcano here within the last hour. No swarming going on. Again, just some mostly microquake activity with at least one three-pointer out here. This earthquake in northern Nevada. Well, looks like we had another one this morning up there. I thought this was from yesterday, but we did see some further movement further north here outside this Sheldon study area. Been noticing a handful of quakes stretching up from this area northward now. This looks like to be the second largest in this little swarm of activity. Let's see, Oregon and Washington fairly quiet today. Not a whole lot going on up there. And a look at the rest of the states. Minimal activity across the majority of the country here. A couple earthquakes around the Appalachian Mountains and the New Madrid seismic zone. All this activity here from yesterday, though. A look at the Yellowstone activity, or lack thereof, shows a whole lot of nothingness going on. Fairly quiet. Maybe a handful of smaller, spiky earthquake activity out here, but really not a whole lot going on there today. It's been a while since we've seen, a really decent earthquake swarm of 2s and 3s for the magnitudes. It's been quite a while. Occasionally we'll get these little earthquake swarms of very small microquakes under 2, but it might be overdue for some larger events here soon. The Alaska area looks obviously typical up here. The latest one shows a 2-pointer near Chase, Alaska. And mostly microquake activity out there today. So, looking at this map, it does look quite absent of earthquake activity on just your standard day, right? And I look at these things a lot. Every day, all day, looking at these maps and graphs. And just on my observation here, it looks fairly quiet. So obviously something is potentially brewing out here. I mean, really haven't seen a lot of advancement here across the western areas of the Pacific Plate. So that kind of leads me to believe that we could still see some activity out here across the area of the eastern regions of the Pacific Plate. Just kind of a standstill right now. New Zealand, still waiting for some movement down here across New Zealand. Deeper activity obviously has to be adding strain further upstream. Let me go over here to the GeoNet servers real quick, see what we got going on. 2.9 looks like that's from yesterday, their time. Let me go over here to the all magnitude so I can see what's going on. The majority of the smaller quakes and the deeper quakes are not going to be felt. 36 minutes ago, 2.8, almost 300 kilometers deep underneath the North Island area. A couple other smaller quakes there. This one upstream, it looks like 25 kilometers, 27 kilometers. These are very small earthquakes, but they're happening upstream towards the Hikurangi subduction zone. There's some further deep activity there 3 hours ago, 110 kilometers for a 2.2. Another deep earthquake, 148 kilometers. So that's, obviously of concern that we're seeing deeper movement underneath this area. That means that strain is building and continuing across this area. We've seen a lot of movement north and south of this area recently in terms of, decent movement, adjustment. But we really haven't seen anything take place here across the New Zealand area that should have by now. Let's bring up the last week of earthquake activity, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Even so, this doesn't even cover some of the 6s that happened down here. We did have a 6.7 and a couple other earthquakes here across the Kermadec Trench northward. So this Bend area definitely under some strain. Got to watch the New Zealand area, I feel. I've said it for a couple days, but we really haven't seen any major change in that observation that would lead me to believe that that area is off and safe. We really haven't seen any decent adjustment. Here's the last 30 days, 2.5 and above. Look at that clustering going on here across the Kermadec Trench. A lot of deep activity, and this is just what the USGS is showing us here. And these were all above 4-pointer. Look at that. A lot of these underneath the North Island area. The deepest one's going to be this one here, 383 kilometers. But, you know, this activity is associated with this zone right here. Up north, you have the Kermadec Trench. But this is the Hikurangi subduction zone, and that's, you know, like any other subduction zone area, you get these deeper quakes in the region. We can check out historical data here, and we'll probably see that, you know, it's historically active in the region with these darker colored circles. Let me bring up the key here so you guys can see. Most of the activity between 70 and 300 kilometers deep. Occasionally we get some deeper ones up north this way. Shallower, larger events take place upstream here. And of course, you know, it doesn't show it on here, but the Hikurangi subduction zone's one of the big players out here in producing some larger damaging earthquakes. Any subduction zone area is capable of producing some, you know, those big mega quakes. So we'll continue to watch this area. I still, you know, I haven't seen any adjustment here that leads me to believe that, you know, that we shouldn't be on guard. Always be on guard out there when we're seeing elevated activity. All right, let's see here if we're missing anything. The earthquake seismograph stations here look pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on right now. I do have a station there in New Zealand monitoring the seismic data. And, of course, the rest of the stations there around the globe. I think right now, you know, a lot of people watching the Iceland activity. And it's questionable on if we're going to see activity out here soon. Obviously, there's quite a bit of a magma accumulation underneath the region. And the question is if that's enough pressure to break through the area and create these eruptive fissures. It's been, I think, over 30 days now, right, since we've seen our last eruption, and the intervals here between eruptions have been about 30 days. Now, you know, we're not noticing any one specific area showing intense earthquake activity. This is just happening across all the rift zones across this area. And I think leading up, you know, we've seen something similar here prior to our last eruption, something similar to this, and then the following day or two we've seen just hundreds of earthquakes located in the region where it's roughly right about here, if I remember right, where the last fissure activity opened up, the eruptive fissure activity opened up, and we should see that again prior to any eruptive activity taking place, and it should be confined to one area with those hundreds of earthquakes. Right now, we only got 97 earthquakes across the entire area in the last 12 hours, but it's elevated. It's definitely a lot more elevated than we've seen in the last couple days. And when we do see those hundreds of earthquakes pop up in a certain area, certain region, say directly underneath Grindavik, then that means that we're watching for some eruptive activity to take place literally within about 30 minutes or so or less within that zone. Hopefully it's not, but we're seeing further activity out here today, and that's definitely of concern. Again, a live look across the area. I did see a couple vehicles going out of town. This would be, I guess, towards the north here. This is looking towards the south, I believe. Got the coast out here, so Grindavik right here. And it is live. Again, this is from live from Iceland.is, a really cool site to check out. If you want to, see some eruptive activity. There's one vehicle, looks like heading back into town. All right, let's see what we got here for some space weather activity. Looks like we're continuing our decline here in terms of flaring activity. A B4.8 coming in. That's just some background level activity right now. Really not Space Weather Prediction Center. What's going on here? Are we working? Are we working today? That seems a little slow. I don't think it's my internet connection. Are we still live? Let me double check here. We are still live, still streaming. It's a little odd. Okay, that's weird. Just kind of slow. All right, so here's the current flaring activity down into the B flare category. I call that the boring class because it is. There's not a whole lot of activity happening here. And if you look at the current magnetogram image here of the sun, 3599, the source of a recent M flare and a C flare or two, is continuing to drift off across the western edge of the sun, western limb of the sun. And there's still a little bit of complexity within that sunspot core, but it doesn't look like it wants to really have any flaring going on with that. So, I mean, there's still a little threat. I think we were looking at maybe 80% chance for a C flare or so right there. M flare at 25, X flare around 5% chance or so, but I'm really not seeing any X flare potential here. And coming around the bend, the eastern limb, not a whole lot. Just some very small sunspots. What I'm kind of looking forward to, and I'm kind of curious to see if it'll hold together, is our old regional sunspot 3590, the source of the solar cycle 25's largest X flare that happened here weeks ago. This is the far side area of the sun, and the latest image here. Let's see where the latest image is. Does show 3590 continuing. Well, this is it looks like it's off. This is from yesterday. I'm not for sure if Kevin's gonna update it or not. This is a narrow look at the far side. This is updated. This looks like it's fairly updated recently here. This is the Earth-directed view, Earth view. But yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of watch this, see how it plays out. Hopefully 3590 here will take a trip back around the bend and maybe give us some more action in terms of solar flare activity. Current day one outlook for some severe weather here on this planet. Well, there's not a whole lot going on here. Look at maybe a little bit of thunderstorm activity outside of Seattle along the extreme Pacific Northwest coast here. Aside from that, potentially some severe weather coming up with the threat of mainly some wind and hail events there across that marginal risk area. Looks like portions of Kansas and Oklahoma. And day 3 looks about the same out there. We're kind of watching day 4. They're hinting at a little bit more potential of severe weather for this day, which is on Thursday. That more than likely will be due to large hail and potential tornado activity, just looking at this. But yeah, 15% chance for Thursday, but we will get, obviously we'll cover that as we get a little bit closer to this date. But right now, this is their observation that we could see some severe weather out in Texas and Oklahoma, Louisiana, portions of Arkansas out here as well. Come Thursday. Here across the West Coast, well, we got another storm system coming in today and tomorrow. We're not really going to get much down here across the Sacramento Valley area. Looks like mainly some smaller smaller rain showers up in the mountains, some snow up there as well in the higher elevations. But we're getting that rain shadow effect here with that. You can see that loop in between the data here, in between that rain. That's a pretty big rain shadow here in the Sacramento Valley, so we're really not expecting much. And then after that, that severe weather potential heads over there in Texas. Now it looks like that'll be a dandy as we head into Thursday and Thursday night and potentially on Friday as well. Look at that. That's a decent amount of rainfall accumulation. So we'll cover that as we get closer to that date. In California, it looks like maybe the models are hinting at a return of some wetter weather as we head into the end of March. We'll have to keep a close eye on it. It's a ways out there. Like I said in my previous update videos, I'm not quite ready for some hot temperatures yet here in California. I like the rain. It keeps everything nice and cool and green. So again, I did make an adjustment here to the the microphone, it was only in one channel, so not too many people caught that. I did catch a viewer that left a comment, so I went double checked myself. There was a lot of people saying, "Yeah, sounds great, sounds good," and then quite a few people saying, "Yeah, there's a background noise now," which I still have to adjust that. But the one channel thing kind of bugged me because a lot of people listen to these videos in a pair of headphones, and that's the most annoying thing, is to hear just one channel in operation. So I fixed that. It should be good. If not, let me know. It's a brand new microphone. I'm trying to get all the kinks out and work out all the bugs, and it's it's a work in process here, so I'll continue to work on that. But for now, I hope everyone has a good day. We'll kind of just watch things, how they play out. I did mute the Earthquake 3D bells. I'm guessing I left those on last night during the update. I try not to do that. There's a couple different options. I don't like it playing in the background. Obviously, it will cut over my voice. So I got to remember to click this mute button right here. This is for the microphone, and this is for the Earthquake 3D bells. Hopefully that doesn't happen again in the future, but if it does, it does. But I'll try to make a note of it, not to have that happen again. Nothing quite like noise happening in your update video while you're trying to speak and discuss a video here. All right, guys, I got to get quite a bit of schoolwork done here within the next 2 hours, so I will be off on the side. Pretty busy, but if anything does pop up, I will jump on and I'll do some updates here. But keep an eye on Iceland and New Zealand area for now. We'll catch you guys back out here later this afternoon, evening time period. Take care.